Hi, if you want your soloing to become more melodic and be more like Mark Knopfler, Dave Gilmour, those sort of guitarists, there's one thing you can do which will really make a massive difference. Now what I'm talking about is learning where the notes of the chords can be found in different places on the neck. And the idea of this is that someone like Mark Knopfler, what he will do a lot is he's playing over a certain chord, he'll play the notes that are in that chord, maybe in a different position to where the chord's being played, like an F chord, maybe there. He might be playing up here somewhere, but he'll be playing the notes that he knows are contained within that chord. So the more you know about the fretboard and about where the chord notes are found, the better. Now there's two ways to do this. The first way is to look at what the actual note names are of a particular chord. And there's a way you can make a very good sort of educated guess at this without actually knowing the notes. And then there's another way where you can kind of verify if you've got it right. So basically a simple chord like a major or a minor is going to have three notes in it. Even if it's a big chord shaped like the bar chord where you're using 6 strings, you're still only using 3 different notes. It's just that some of them are being duplicated. So to find the 3 notes, a simple way to make a good guess is to just start on the root note. So let's say we're trying to work out what notes are in a G chord, G major. Start with G. Go through the musical alphabet. Now the musical alphabet is the same as the standard alphabet, but it stops at G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. After G it then goes around again, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's the musical alphabet. So if we're finding a G chord, start at G. That's 1. Count up to number 3. So after G it's going to be A, B. So B's number 3. Keep going, get to number 5. C, D. So we want 1, 3 and 5 from this number system. So if G is number 1, going through the musical alphabet, G, A, B, C, D. G, B and D. And this isn't necessarily 100% accurate, but what it does tell you is that these are definitely the letter names that we need for a G chord. Definitely. You can rely on that. So it's always every other letter. Going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 3 and 5. G, A, B, C, D. G, B, D. Those are definitely the letters. And then the only other thing that could be involved is a sharp or a flat on one or more of the notes. Now we know that the G is not going to be a sharp or flat because it's a G chord that we're finding. It's not G sharp or G flat, it's a G. So G is definitely right. G, A, B, C, D. So the B and the D could be sharps or flats. And the way you can work out whether they are or not, a simple way, is just play a G chord that you know is a G chord. So something like that perhaps. Okay, and then we look at the chord and think, well, there's some G's in there. Well, there's going to be some B's and D's. Are the B's and D's sharps or flats? Well, this note here is a B because the open string is A, so A sharp must be 1st fret, B is 2nd fret. So that note isn't a sharp or a flat, it's just a B. Have we got any D's in there? There is one D, which is the open 4th string. Well, the open 4th string is just a D. It's not a sharp or flat. That tells us that the chord of G major has got a G, a B and a D. And then you can find G's, B's and D's in different places on the neck, and you know that you'll be playing things that are going to sound good over a G chord. Now this is a complicated way of doing it. So the other way I'm going to show you in a minute is probably better, but I just want to go through this way first. Let's do one more example. Let's think of a random chord. Let's think of E major. Okay, so do the number thing, going through the musical alphabet. So number 1 is going to be E, F, G, A, B. So it's E, G, B. E, G, B is 1, 3 and 5, counting up from E. E, G, B. We know E is just E because it's an E chord we're after. Is the G a sharp or flat? And is the B a sharp or a flat? So let's have a look. Play an E chord and just look at that chord. Look at what notes I'm playing in this chord. I'm playing my open E. This note here, what's that? That string is the A string, A sharp, B. If you don't know how to do what I'm doing here, put in the comments and I'll send you a link to another lesson I did on finding the names of notes. So that note's B. So that tells us that the B note in the E chord is not sharp or flat, it's just B. This next one here is another E. Then this one here is a G sharp because the open string is G, so that note must be G sharp. Now G sharp can also sometimes be called A flat, but it's not going to be called that here because we know that the letters must be E, G and B because we counted up. It's definitely those letters, so that is definitely a G, but the fact it's there tells us it's G sharp because G would be the open string. And then the last two notes are another B and another E. So that tells us that the chord of E major has an E, a G sharp and a B. So as I said a minute ago, that's a little bit complicated. It works and it's the more theoretically sort of correct way to do it, but it's a bit complicated. There are other ways using theory that you can work this out as well. So when you're soloing, you don't really want to be thinking, now I'm going to head for a G sharp note, or now I'm going to go for a B because I know it's in the chord. It's too much to be thinking about. You just want to be letting your fingers go to notes without thinking, let's head for a G sharp. Mostly, occasionally that works, but mostly that's too much thinking really. It stops your playing sounding natural. So the better way I think to do this is to learn 3 simple triad shapes for majors and 3 simple triad shapes for minor. Now a triad is a basic 3-note chord, and because we're using this as a way of improving our lead playing, it makes sense that we'd be using the thinner strings because they're the ones you do more lead playing on than the thicker strings in general. So these triads can be found in different places, different combinations of strings, but I'm just going to be using the top 3, the 3rd, 2nd and 1st strings. Okay, so I'll take an example of, let's think of one, could be anything, G major. Okay, so we'll go with G major. So the triad shape to learn first is this one. The way you can remember that is it's the top part of the bar chord, if you happen to know that G bar chord. So that's a little mini G chord, G major. I've got my first finger at the 3rd fret covering the first 2 strings, and my second finger's on the 3rd string at 4th fret. Now how do we know it's G? Well, firstly because it's in the same place as the bar chord, which you may already know is a G. If you don't know that that's a G, then the simple way to find this one is to locate it by the root note, the G note, which is on the 1st string. So with this shape, which is a movable shape, you can play it in different places for different chords. The root note is always on the 1st string. So whatever note that is, that gives you the name for this chord. So if I wanted to play a different one, if I wanted it to be a B major, I need to find a B on this string, which is here, 7th fret. Play the shape. That is a B major triad. So you've got a G major there, a B major there, and obviously all of the other majors can be played with that chord shape. You need to know a little bit about note positions for this. You need to know the notes of the 1st string for that particular shape. Now I said there were 3 to learn. That's the first one. The next one in this example is here. And you'll recognise that probably. Looks like a D chord. If you learnt a D down there, it's that same shape. Sometimes you might play this, if you're strumming a chord, you might play it like that with a sort of half bar, but it doesn't matter how you do it, it's the same notes. So in this example I've got 7th fret on the 3rd string, 8th on the 2nd string, 7th on the 1st string. Just playing those 3 strings. Now for this shape, the root note, the G, is on the 2nd string. So that's the G. Just like on this shape, the 1st string was the G. You can hear it's the same note. So that's G. This is also G. And then there's one more. So the next one also comes from a bar chord. It's the top part of an A-shaped bar chord. So what I've got to do for this is put my first finger on the 10th fret on the first string, my little finger, it doesn't matter which fingers really, but I'm using my little finger on the second string at 12th, third finger on the third string at 12th. Again, just 3 strings. So that is a G major chord with another triad shape. So what we've got is and they're all G major chords, all movable shapes. That third one, you can probably guess, but the root note is on the third string. So to locate the triads, you need to know where G in this example is on these 3 strings. So there's a G here, a G here, a G there. So the point of this is when you're playing a solo, whatever key you're in, doesn't matter what scale you're using, if there's a G chord in the song you're soloing over, it doesn't matter what key it's in, over that G chord, as well as whatever you're already doing, you can always play these 3 notes, and these 3, and these 3. And it's really effective. This sounds too obvious when I do it like this and demonstrate it. It just sounds really obvious that you're just playing the G chord notes in a different place over the G chord. That's not going to sound very interesting, but it works really well. Mark Knopfler's the master at this. Dave Gilmour, I mentioned, he's also very good at this, and there's lots of other guitarists, ones that spring to mind that are good at this. Steve Rothery in Marillion, someone I used to listen to a lot, he's really good at this kind of thing as well. And you can tell when you listen to these players, they are definitely thinking about the chords as they're playing, but they're probably not thinking about individual notes. So he's probably not thinking over a G chord, right, I must hit some B's and D's and G's. He's just thinking of where the little triad shapes are. So he might be soloing around here somewhere, over the G chord, jump up to the G triad, and not necessarily play it like this. Let's imagine you're playing in B minor, for example, so you're in this B pentatonic minor scale. There's a G chord involved, you might do something like this. So I just used the notes of the chord, but not in a really obvious way. Or I could have gone to any of the other positions, so I could be playing here. Or the one here, which is a bit easier because you're already in that position. And that would work really well over the G chord, which is in key. If you're in a key of B minor, there is a G chord. So it's not that you're having to move out of the key or anything, you're just highlighting the notes of that particular chord at that time. This obviously can be used even more effectively when you've got a chord sequence where one of the chords is out of key. You listen to the solo on Hotel California by the Eagles, that's what they're doing. I'm not going to demonstrate it because the video will probably disappear from YouTube and I'll be told off, so I'm not going to play it. But have a listen to it. There's a couple of points in that where they're really doing this, they're really playing the notes of the chord because the chord's out of key. Right, so that's the 3 major triads. Just while we're on those, I'm just going to quickly give you another example just to make sure you've definitely got it. So that was G. So let's think of another example. Let's think of B. Okay, so for B, I need to find a B on these 3 strings. Well, on this first string there's a B here. So for the first string it's this shape. On the second string there's a B, well there's the open B string. That's not really going to help me much for that shape. So let's find it somewhere else. It's at 12th fret as well. So I can do the D shape. That's my B chord there. And then I need a B on the 3rd string. Well, there's a B on the 3rd string at 4th fret. So my shape there is going to be that one, which, as I said before, comes from an A-shaped bar. So just to clarify that again, G would be this, because of that note. This, because because of this note, on this because of that note, and B would be this because of the B, or this because of that B, or this because of that B. So then we just have to learn the minors. Now the minors are very similar to the majors because the difference between a minor chord and a major chord is just one note which moves slightly. So they're going to be very close to the three majors we just did, using the same three root notes. So let's go back to G again. So remember G major was this. Okay, so there's my G. The shape for the minor for that string is just that. So one finger flattened down to play it as a chord. Obviously when you're using it in lead, it doesn't matter which finger lands on which note. It's just those are your three notes you can use. For the second string, G was here. We did that for the major, a D shape. For the minor, it's a D minor shape, so it's that. And then the third string, the G was at 12th fret. We did this for the major. For the minor, it's just that. So it's 12, 11, 10. So I could play G to G minor like this. Or and that's just using G as an example. I could do the same with B like we did before. I'll quickly do that one. So the majors, just to recap, were there, there, and there. If I turn them into minors, the B minor there coming from the third string is that. The one here coming from the first string is that. And the one coming from the second string is that. Now if these seem a bit complicated, a bit hard to learn, just go slowly with them and take my word for it that they're not that hard to learn. If you start using them very gradually in your playing, you know, just take one of them, one of the shapes perhaps, and introduce that into your playing. It's quite easy to get the hang of these, and the more you use them, like a lot of this stuff, the more it makes sense, and you can then do them instinctively almost. You don't feel like you're even thinking about it. Your fingers just go to these notes. Incredibly useful. In particular, if you want your playing to move beyond just playing up and down a pentatonic scale. There's nothing wrong with that, but a lot of people come to me for lessons and say, I can solo, but it always sounds the same. I'm just going up and down this same pentatonic scale. I need to break out of that. And this is a really good way of doing that. Okay, if you've got any questions, put them in the comments as always. And if you want to see other lessons on similar things, then tell me that in the comments as well. Okay, and click like as well if you can. Thanks.